good morning, everyone. Okay, welcome to our first annual Back to School lecture series. We're gonna get started shortly. We're just waiting for a couple more people to come in. Okay, I hope you guys are doing well on this beautiful morning. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, just gonna wait a few more minutes and then we're gonna get started.
Perfect. You got about
what time is it?
2 more minutes to 11:35.
Yeah, 2 more minutes. If you want to grab your coffee or
got your notes. Hey, Bernadette.
Yep, pen and paper. It's going to be a good series. So we welcome your questions.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, let's see. We have 11 participants in so far.
Great.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yes, it is.
Good morning. Welcome. We have another participant just joined Zoom. Good morning, Kaveen. Am I saying it right? Kaveen, good morning. She said good morning to everyone.
Sorry, I'm renaming myself as Eusebia Pena. That's the site manager's name, and since I'm on her Zoom, but it's Eusebia Pena from Family Ties. How y'all doing?
Okay. Good morning. Welcome.
Hi, Mr. Queen. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for chiming in this morning.
Sure, no problem. I'm here.
Awesome. All right, so let's just dive right in. It is 11:35. Okay. So again, good morning. Welcome everyone to our first annual Back to School lecture series. Hopefully this is the start of many of these series to come. And it's titled, What Parents Really Need to Know to Support Their Special Needs Child. Okay, and this is brought to you by the Autism Project, Queen from the Autism Project, as well as Nia Mensa from the Kusudi International Incorporated. Okay, and ladies, do you guys want to just wave and say hi?
I'll chime right in really quickly.
Yes,
I want to say greetings and good morning, and thank you to everyone that took the time to log in this morning. It's very important that our parents understand the professionals that work with them as well as the services that they get. So this is a little bit unique. We're having professionals speak to them directly and help them on their journey navigating through. So don't be afraid to ask questions. Miss Grace is excellent. She can answer any questions that you have, and it's going to be great. So I'm so glad you chimed in. And I want to also firstly thank Kusudi International that co-sponsored this, because without Kusudi, I don't know if we'd be on here because I'm not good with technology. So thank to Kusudi, thank you to Miss Grace for doing the first one, psychology, which is really important. It touches on so many different aspects. And then the parents that took the time also to chime in today to learn a little something new.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I have to give a shout out to the Queen. My name is Nia Mensa. I'm the president of Kusudi International. It has been an absolute privilege to work with the Queen and all the parents of children with special needs. I'm a physical therapist, but Kusudi International meets purpose. We just try to focus on filling a need wherever there is one. So this is a wonderful opportunity. And what we do it for the parents. So thank you again for this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to learning from Miss Grace. Thank you to all our speakers and all our guests.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. And
Mhm.
just to introduce myself, my name is Nana Degree. I'll be a moderator for this morning. Okay, and just a little brief introduction about myself. I'm a mom of 3 beautiful kids. I'm also a special educator as well. I have 3 children, as I mentioned, Nyana Dallison Douglas III, and I'm also a parent to a special needs child. My daughter Dallas Degree, she's on a spectrum, and she's nonverbal. So I can relate on both ends, one as a teacher and also definitely as a parent. So again, this is an honor for me to be able to be a part of this. So as I mentioned, today is the first of 7 series that we will be conducting, and I'm just going to refer to the flyer. So today's topic is psychology, as the Queen mentioned, and psychology is so important, okay, especially in our schools. And the role of a school psychologist is important, especially in the IEP process. As we know, the psychologist is the person who will give your child that IQ test and the evaluations and the psychological surveys, and that's all part of the IEP planning process. And if your child is having trouble in school during the school year that may require counseling, school psychologist is who you want to meet with, okay? And if your child is having some emotional issues during school, again, the school psychologist is someone that you really want to work closely in helping your child. They can help make the necessary requests, accommodations for your child. I personally can attest to that. My daughter, as I mentioned, is special needs, and last year she just was having a rough moment, and thank God that we have school psychologists such as Miss Grace, who works in my daughter's school. She was able to work closely with my daughter's teacher along with myself to come up with a great solution to help her. So again, I am extremely grateful for the resources that we do have. So with that being said, I'm just going to read a little bio, introduce Miss Grace to everyone. Again, she's dynamic, she's awesome. And she has been serving in the capacity of a school psychologist for Yonkers Public Schools for 25 years, which is
She looks
amazing.
12, though. How is that
25.
possible?
All right, she looks about 25.
Right?
Thank you.
Oh, yes. Been serving the district for 25 years. She has a passion and commitment to supporting and advocating for our children, adolescents, and young adults, as well as their families across the whole developmental spectrum. Her greatest reward is teaching the children that she services self-advocacy, which we know is extremely important. The self-advocacy will allow them to be heard in their own individual way. And when students are not able to self-advocate, Ms. Grace steps right in. She assists in bridging the gap by equipping parents to be the advocacy, the voice for their children. And she does it with love and with pride. Ms. Grace received her Bachelor's of Science from St. John's University, a Master's of Science in Education, as well as a Master of Science in School Community Psychology from the College of New Rochelle. Okay, and she's not done yet. She also holds a license in as a mental health counselor. Okay, and she's currently enrolled in a school neuropsychology postgraduate certification license program. Okay, so she's on her way to be the doctor. Okay, so she's not, she does not only have the credentials as well as the experience, she has the compassion to do this. And for that, we welcome her. And we thank her for the time that she has this morning to just shed some light on us about psychology and how parents such as ourselves can use that to support our children. Okay, so with that being said, Ms. Grace.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Mrs. Degree, for that introduction. I just want to share with everyone that the conversation that I'm presenting and sharing with everyone today is just a very small piece of what school psychology entails. So the conversation will continue in the future through other presentations, and I look forward to working with this group of parents, educators, so that we can continue the conversation, because what's being presented today is really just a small portion, but very important. So today I will be speaking and sharing information that will be important. And when I speak as a psychologist, people say, oh, you sound so easy to listen to. and I share with people, although I have credentials, I always like to speak with others, parents, students, whoever it may be, in a way as if I was in their shoes. How would I want to be spoken to? How I would want information to be disseminated to me. So I try to articulate that in my everyday conversations with everyone. So I hope everyone will feel comfortable during my presentation. If there's any questions, please put it in the chat. Mrs. Degree will be moderating. And after each slide, I do welcome any questions or comments. So with that being said, I'll move along to my first slide. Okay. Okay. So what we'll be speaking and having conversations about today is regarding special needs children and psychology in the school setting, because it does look different on a clinical level as opposed to school. So I really wanted to talk about what is the definition of a school psychologist? What is it that they do? So school psychologists apply knowledge of learning, behavior, and mental health support to students and teachers, and typically grades K through 12. However, in a lot of schools, there are preschool classes, and in particularly in my school, there is pre-K classes, and I do also work with those students as well. School psychologists are uniquely qualified members of a school support team, and their purpose is really to assess and to help students learn, and to also help the teachers teach students that are having certain concerns in school. Okay. My role as a school psychologist, I'm responsible particularly, and you'll find in every school district, the role of a school psychologist may look different. For myself, my role as a school psychologist, I'm responsible for completing psychological evaluations for the purposes of special education eligibility and services. In addition, I do provide counseling for students with emotional, social concerns, and I support students that are presenting with behavioral challenges in the classroom. And as a member of the pupil support team, I also support the administration, staff members, parents, and doing such things as creating and implementing individualized, like academic, social, emotional, behavioral plans for students, whether they have IEPs or not. So not only do I work with children that have IEPs and are deemed to receive special education services, I also work with children who may not have qualified for services, giving them the support as well in the school setting. I do strive to provide students and families with tools that they need to succeed. I'm a strong advocate for students and parents, and I do believe in a collaborative, strength-based approach when working to solve problems related to children's social emotional well-being. And in addition to that, I do act as a liaison between the school and community agencies to access mental health support services that may not be able to be implemented in the school setting. Mrs. Degree, you can stop me if any parents are having any questions or anyone on the presentation is having questions. Otherwise, I'll continue. Do we have any questions at this time?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Bridging the gap between home and school. This is so crucial, and I cannot state this over and over and over again. Communication is key when supporting your child in the school setting. And before I go over the information that's here on the screen, I do just want to add, I always stress to parents, the littlest incident, the littlest things that are happening at home or in the family, parents are not understanding at all times how it affects the children in school. In order for us to help them, I always encourage parents to just tell us, even if it's my son went to bed last night or my daughter went to bed last night and he or she was cranky, we got in late last night. Those are key pieces of communication to offer to your child's teacher or to the school to help them, because that may impact their day in school, which could end up being, okay, a call home or, providing more support for that child, which we're always happy to do, but we always try to be preventive and restorative. So sharing information, whether you think it's something very small, is very important to help with the success of your child on a day-to-day basis. So in regards to the slide, it is important to know when you have any concerns regarding your child's education, development or behavior to communicate it with the school. And I say this to parents, even if your child currently has an IEP, and let's say, for example, your child is receiving just speech or maybe occupational therapy, if any other concerns come up, please always communicate it with the school, because that could entail additional evaluations that may be completed in order to secure additional supports for your children. And then please know, parents, anytime there's any concerns, there should always be a student support team in your child's building. The name may be different. Sometimes they call them student support team or pupil support teams, but there's always a team in the building that you as a parent can meet with to discuss any concerns that you have with your children in efforts to get supports for them. And usually the support teams are made up of certain people, such as the teacher, usually an administrator, the psychologist, and or maybe a social worker and a guidance counselor. And I know that can seem intimidating, whether your child receives services or you're looking forward to getting services, but I do encourage parents that the sole purpose of the people on that team is to support your child so that they could be successful. And it's all about communicating. So that's something that I highly encourage parents to reach out to schools and really just ask for meetings so that you can further assess what may be happening with your child. And then, in regards to your child qualifying for additional services, my position would be a key factor in that. As a school psychologist, I do complete, a certain portion of testing aside from the special area therapists, such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy. We have vision therapists, we have hearing teachers of the hearing impaired. So there's a vast amount of evaluations that can be done. The psychological component it tends to be a little bit more extensive because we evaluate a child's cognitive functioning, their social emotional functioning, as well as their academic functioning. So that is a big piece of having your child evaluated, reevaluated. So I do want parents to keep that in mind. Okay. And again, bridging the gap between home and school. I do share with parents, if updated psychological testing is requested through the Committee on Special Education, that, the school's team should work with you in explaining to you, what it is that process will look like, what needs to be done. And I always share with parents, you can be your own self-advocate. You can research information in order to find out what it is that you really need to know. There is a website that you can go to. That's the New York State Special Education website. You can just Google New York State Special Education, and there's a PDF booklet. It's very extensive that you can look into, and you can get information to further help you along the process of evaluating your child. But I always share with parents to really look to the schools to really support you in that process as well. Do we have any questions, Mrs. Degree, at this time?
You're doing great. No questions.
Okay. All right. This just talks to, signs that your child may need additional services. And as I may be repeating myself at times, but I do just want to make clear that even though your child may be receiving services in one or two areas, as a lot of people know, when children develop, things come up, certain behaviors go away, some behaviors appear, certain learning difficulties happen, sometimes they go away. And it's important for parents to know that if you see any changes in your child's behavior or how they're functioning, please reach out. You can have additional testing done, psychological testing if your child is, has difficulty concentrating, acting out in class, feeling overwhelmed, having feelings of anxiety or sadness or hopelessness. And a lot of this you can learn from just having conversations with your children or just observing, if there's a difference or a change in their behavior. And again, I do stress, and I cannot stress that if you see these things happening, reach out to the school, ask for a meeting, ask to speak to the psychologist privately in a one-to-one meeting if you don't feel comfortable having a team meeting initially. But they are professionals in the building, in the school buildings, that are there to provide supports for you and your student. Okay. Signs that your child may need a particular service other than what they may be receiving. And just as a parent, just to know, what do you need to know about psychological testing? What does psychological testing entail? Myself as a school psychologist, I look at the presenting concern, and that will kind of tell me what things I need to do in regards to testing, having parents fill out, rating scales or interview forms so that I can gather information that will give me more insight as to what the child may need additionally than what they may have. Again, interviews with parents, having conversations with parents, guardians, and teachers, interviewing the child, observing the child to see what it is more that the child may need in the classroom or in the school setting to support them more so that they are more able to have success in the school setting. Okay. And again, I mentioned before, rating scales, written tests. These are some of the assessments that I do, conduct. And then gathering the background information is very crucial. Has the family composite change? Sometimes that affects children where they may need, additional supports in the school setting. So again, I encourage to always, share information when information is being gathered to support your child or to look in to see what services or what more services your child may need. Okay. Qualifying for special education service. This is a big topic. And a lot of times parents will say, oh, I would like this service for my child. I would like that service for my child. Your child usually will be evaluated for specifically what the concern is, and on a broad level as well. But I do share with parents, again, I always like to encourage parents to gather information. In qualifying for services, there's a criteria that has to happen. A child has to show a certain level of dysfunction in order to receive a formal service on an IEP. However, as I stated before, there's always informal services that can be provided for children in a school setting if they do not qualify for a service. And that is also very important for parents to understand as well. Even if your child has an IEP and they don't have a certain service on there and they do not qualify for it, especially if it's counseling, that's something that can be done, with or without an IEP. With speech, occupational therapy, those services really, the child has to qualify for them, and it has to be on their IEP in order for them to receive that services. But in psychology, as a psychologist, your child can receive school-based counseling if it's not on their IEP and they do not qualify for it. So that is also important to know as well. But I do encourage parents, again, there's New York State Special Education Department has a website. There's information on there so you can go on and you can read, for yourself. There is a special education, the Part 200 that gives you information about what does qualifying for special education services look like for students. So I do encourage parents to go on and just peruse that website so that you can just have information for yourself. Okay. So let's say that, in the area of psychology, you felt as though your child needed counseling and they didn't have counseling, and those evaluations took place that I stated. And let's say your child qualified for counseling on their IEP. That service would be put on their IEP along with any other services that they are, receiving. And it will say, school-based counseling. And usually they will say, what amount of service in school in counseling does your child would be eligible for. And, that's something that your child will be eligible for once it's deemed that they qualify for it. School-based counseling services are provided for students as a short-term intervention to assist them in developing strategies and skills to be able to cope with their social emotional needs. And these services do include behavioral intervention. Sometimes children need, a behavioral plan to help them be able to navigate and to help them be able to understand how to regulate their behaviors if it's in a manner where it's disruptive to them, their learning. So those are some services that can come out of counseling. Usually counseling takes place during a limited, time in a group setting or individually. And a group setting and individually will be based on what the concern is. Sometimes children that are more emotionally fragile, that can communicate that. Sometimes individual counseling is better for them. Children that tend to have difficulty with like social skills, interacting appropriately in a social manner with other students, group counseling is a better option for those students because they get a chance to practice that in a group with other children that struggle in that same area, along with having a psychologist there to guide the group in those services. School-based counseling is reviewed every year. Anyone that has a child that has an IEP, I'm quite sure you've heard the title annual review meeting. So every year, whatever service your child receives, along with being counseling, that service every year is reviewed to see, you know, how much progress the child has made and do they qualify to continue to need that service for the next school year. So that's something that has to be looked at on the IEP, and it's available there for parents to see.
Ms. Grace, I'm going to interrupt you right there. We have someone has their hands up, the Pena family. I believe she has a question.
Sure.
Yes, hi. I apologize. You save your opinion for Family Ties. What I wanted to comment and piggyback right on, I deal with a lot of Hispanic population, and a lot of them are undocumented. They don't get the same services or get the same approach that we all do, you know, so have language barrier and they have difficulty even engaging services in the school. Sometimes I had to get student advocacy involved in order for them to get the proper services or assistance or help, because these parents are giving the running around and don't get, you know, how you say, they don't direct them or navigate them to the right services. So they are left looking for service, looping around, and just because they're undocumented, some of them are being discriminated as well. And the kids get suspended repeatedly due to their behavioral problem. Or they tell them, take your kids to your pediatric and get a diagnosis, and then you could come back. But I don't think it's fair that they should be treated like that. As for a parent myself, I remember when my child, he's 26 now, he was going to school. It took me to sign I think it was CSC or CEC paper asking for services. He didn't get services until he was in 5th grade. So sometimes it has to do with the system, the school system, and the people that's in position as well. And I just want to vouch out for my Hispanic family. They don't get the same help opportunity as we do. Thank God I'm able to help them as much as I can, but we need people right in place who help them as well in the system and at the Board of Ed.
Right. Can I ask you a question? Is that more of a language barrier problem as well as the other issues are concerned? If it was someone that spoke Spanish, alrighty. So
I can just comment on that. Thank you for sharing that information. I can comment on that. And, you know, working in the public school system for over 25 years, that is a current and ongoing topic of discussion. I do know in the particular district that I do work for, there's been ongoing efforts to hire more staff in the school setting as part of the student support team that are bilingual, Spanish speaking. So a lot of times we're trying to have it, if it's not the psychologist that's bilingual, the social worker, the guidance counselor, the team usually compiles of someone that is bilingual. I'm very cognizant of that. In my school, I do have parents that are undocumented. I work closely with my guidance counselor as well as my social worker, who are both bilingual, and having conversations with those parents to make sure that we're providing the supports. I'm very cognizant of it. I can't always speak to other schools, but I do make sure that we are not overlooking our Spanish-speaking parents that may be afraid. A lot of times parents are afraid to come forward because they're afraid that something may happen with them in regards to their status, you know, of being here. And I always try to stress to my parents that, you know, I'm not an attorney, I'm not the government. My job is to support your child, to advocate for your child, and to assist the parent. So we have worked in my school, I can say work closely with that population of families, whether it be getting the supports that their children need, as well as, you know, anything else that they may need in order to feel, you know, comfortable and feel like they're part of participating and supporting their children. And I would like to speak to, you said, you know, sometimes they'll say, get a diagnosis. I do have to share with, in regards to school services, the school district is really only able to provide services that are on a school-based level, on an educational level. When students start to have difficulty that may be connected to medical issues, or what I would say is a medical model, such as ADHD or emotional disturbances or some type of a neurological disorder. Sometimes it is suggested to the parents that they may need to seek support of a medical profession to see if there's something that's diagnosable, because once it's diagnosable, we know how to treat it and how to support the child better. And that's not saying that that child should not be supported, that all efforts should be put into place to help that student, but having a diagnosis and or medical documentation that could rule in or rule out helps the school be able to support that student better. I hope that answers the question or provides a little bit more light or feedback into, your concern that you stated.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Was there another question or information that needs to be shared, Mrs. Degree?
Someone, Josie, requested the link that you had up before in your slide, but the link for the special education assistance, but I went online and provided that for her.
Okay,
Maybe
great.
you can share the link after the presentation.
I think
Yes,
somebody
I
waving
will.
their hands like they want to speak. Well, a parent. I think I see a parent waving her hand. She
Do I
wants to
see a
speak.
hand?
Well, she's waving at the camera.
Miss
Oh,
Garcia,
Miss Tamara.
Miss Garcia.
Hi.
Yes.
Hi. My baby, he's 6. He's gonna go to 1st grade, and on his IEP, counseling was added, and he has OT speech. And I went to the school not too long ago, and I was informed that he was having a crisis. So I ran over to the school, and it wasn't a crisis. The homeroom teacher told me it was the one-on-one para, because he has a one-on-one para. And when he gets upset, he falls on the floor. He does it like, it's part of his autism. And, I told her, I said, that's part of it. And I had explained to the teacher, but I didn't explain it to the one-on-one. So maybe it was on me. But at one point she was very upset, and the principal had come out. It was for summer school now. I didn't know that summer school was so chaotic. My experience with the summer school was hard. It was hard. Then all 3 years I've had him from pre-K. So it was a little hard putting him and leaving him there. But to make the story short, on his IEP, it said counseling. And when I told her, I said, did you share with the school psychologist or the counselor that he did this? Because he had never done it before at school. So she says, no, I didn't know he got counseling. So then the teacher walks in. She says, nobody's picked them up. But I was thinking maybe because it was summer school, because he's in a 12-month program. So the principal comes out and tells me, no, he's supposed to be getting counseling. And they took out the IEP and it was there. So what happens? He lost all his counseling. It's not a big deal, but it would have been prevented if they would have spoken to a social worker or a school psychologist how to handle him.
So it is
that would be in the bones.
Right. That is a big deal. And having every service that a child is entitled to on their IEP is crucial. It's very important. During the summertime, children are provided with counseling. There is a social worker, as well as, and I'm just speaking for the particular school district that I work for. There's a social worker as well as a psychologist that's there full-time for the entire summer school program. So if the child has counseling on the IEP for the summer, because what happens is that the IEP is broken up into two parts. You have the IEP for what the child is entitled to from September to June. So it'd be from 9, to 6, the months. Then there should be something that said extended school year. So that might be right below where it will show you what the child is entitled for during the summertime. And if the child's entitled for counseling, they have to receive counseling. And that's why I said this conversation will continue, because now that you're bringing this up, maybe we can do another presentation on, helping parents better understand the IEP and going over the IEP,
Yes.
the goals, and maybe that's something that we could do in the future. But that is very crucial. He should have been receiving the services, and maybe that would have prevented what happened. But also everyone that work with children have to know, when there's certain diagnoses, children are going to present with certain behaviors. But when children do present with what is called like safety issues, if they feel that they're going to hurt themselves or hurt others, sometimes they do reach out and contact the parents, because sometimes the parents can calm the children a little bit better. To hear a parent voice sometimes help to calm the child. But I am so sorry to hear that your child did not receive, the services that they were entitled to. And the child should have been receiving counseling if it was on the IEP. So it is important. To me, it is a big deal. But, again, that this conversation can continue so that we can, equip parents on when you receive your child's IEP. Most parents that have special needs children, by now you should have received your child's IEP for the next school year. Looking at that IEP, seeing what services your child needs so you can make sure that they're receiving it, once school starts. But thank you for sharing that. And I'm very sorry to hear that happened. But definitely the child should have been receiving the services if it was on the IEP.
I have a quick question, Ms. Grace.
Sure.
So just let's say, for argument's sake, the parent has the IEP for the summer program, and on that IEP, it has counseling, but it's not being enforced. I mean, and they're not receiving services that's on the IEP. How does a parent go about trying to get the services if they're not being received? Do they have to go through the whole process again?
No. So what happened is that there's usually an administrator that's there at the building for the summer school program. I would start, I do share with parents, and again, like I said, I think this is a great topic that we should just focus on that at another time. But I do encourage parents, once they see what services their child is eligible for, whether it's for the school year, and I'm going to speak a little bit to that in the next few slides, or whether it's for the summer. I, as a parent, I would suggest to parents to say, I know my child is slated to receive speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and counseling. I need to know that my child's receiving all of those services. And you can ask the administrator there, who's the psychologist that's providing my child with the services. I would wait until, the first week of summer school kind of happens. It can be a little hectic getting everyone settled. But by the end of that week, someone should be able to tell a parent a name of a person who is providing that service for their child. You really don't have to contact the district office, because all of those services should be given at the school. Now, if someone's not answering your questions and you're not getting a response or a person's name that is working with your child, then I do recommend that they call the district office to speak to someone in special education to inquire as to why their child's not receiving the service.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to the slide in regards to school-based counseling. I know it's up here, and this just talks to the two type of typical counseling services that are recommended in a group setting or individually. The group setting is no more than 5 children. That's by law. No group setting of related services such as occupational therapy, speech, or counseling. There should never be more than 5 children. That's considered the small group with one therapist, whether it be a speech therapist, a psychologist, social worker, or guidance counselor. Individual counseling is one-to-one. It's the child and whoever the professional is that's working with the child. And typically the sessions last for 30 minutes, and that's during the school year and during summer hours. The service is always 30 minutes for school-age children, kindergarten through 5th grade. Okay. Here is a sample. Once your child receives, counseling, there will be goals put on your child's IEP to talk about what in, social emotional, that whole domain is it that your child needs. And in my area of being a psychologist, I gave you an example here of what, the goal area on your child's IEP would look like if they're receiving psychological counseling in school. And it would say, social emotional development. There's an area that it says all goals, and I'll have goals in all areas: academic, speech, OT, whatever services the child's receiving. And social emotional will be the section that will talk to the school-based counseling that your child may be receiving. And there's usually goals that are put on there. And I just put this here as an example. So parents, when you go back and you look at your IEP and your child has counseling, you can see actually what it is that your child will be working with with that actual counselor or psychologist in the counseling session. And if you see these goals and you feel that I might want something different, I see different things, you can always express that when you have your annual review meetings, or if you're requesting a program review to look at that information in order to change it. This is just an example of, goals that, a child may have. A child will adapt to changes in environment, and that's something that the council would work with the child on in a counseling session to make sure that they're reaching those goals. And to inform parents, the goals are not just listed on the IEP, they have to be worked on consistently during the sessions. And parents, there is areas on the IEP that will say, how is my child doing with these goals? So if you look where I have PG, that means progressing gradually. And this is in red. PS, progressing satisfactory. And at the end of the school year, which is June, you see that the child has achieved that goal. So that goal may come off the IEP for the next school year. If the child has not achieved that goal, they may still continue to work on it for the next school year, depending on what's happening, with that child and where they are in regards to their social emotional development. Okay. Automatic communication about goals. Every parent should look for communication from any service provider that is working with their child. It's supposed to come to you automatically every few months during the school year. Usually every 4 weeks, you should receive documentation indicating how your child is performing in that particular area. Are they progressing gradually, satisfactory? That information should come home to you automatically. If you are not receiving information about how your child's progressing on the goals, I do encourage parents to reach out to that particular service provider, whether it's the psychologist, the speech therapist, the occupational therapist, and make sure that they are giving you that feedback as to how your child's progressing based on the goal that was set up for them on their IEP. Which brings us to, how do you foster communication between the parent and like a psychologist such as myself? I share with all parents, when schools start every year, usually students may have the same therapist, whether it be in whatever area they're receiving services for. Often that person may continue, the following year, and it may change. I do always encourage parents to at least wait until the first month of school completes. And by then you should have received some form of communication from such as somebody as myself, the psychologist, to say, I am working with your child. I will be seeing your child for counseling for whatever the amount is on the IEP. I can give you an example for myself. The first 2 to 3 weeks of school, I'm collecting all of the IEPs of children that have school-based counseling. I'm going through there, I'm making my schedule, I'm seeing which children I'm going to group together, who I have individually. Usually by the end of the month, I have my schedule. By that 3rd week of school, the 4th week, I'm calling parents to let them know what days their child will receive services, if they have group, if they have individual. And I'm also providing that parent with my name, my email address, if they need to communicate with me in any way regarding counseling services or psychological services that will be provided, to their child for the school year. I do encourage parents to reach out and call the psychologist if you have any concerns. At this point, I know in the school district that I work for, we have a school psychologist in every single school. That's something that had been worked on for years, which is wonderful. So there should be somebody in that school, a psychologist, that you can communicate with and ask questions about your child's IEP. If the psychologist is not available, there should be a social worker that's available and or a guidance counselor that can give you some type of feedback and support regarding any question that you may have in regards to your child's IEP. The classroom teacher also has copies of the IEP. You can also reach out to the classroom teacher who may often see these different specialty therapists in the building throughout the day. So if you're not able to connect with the psychologist, you can reach out to your child's teacher and say, hey, I've been trying to call the psychologist. I haven't heard back from the person. Can you let me know who the person is, or maybe pass along a message? So I do encourage parents to do that as well. But communicating with anyone that works with your child is very crucial, starting from the teacher and in all the therapists. You can communicate through phone or email, and that's something I do strongly recommend. Okay. This is a big question that a lot of parents have throughout the school year, how to communicate with your district special education department, for whatever reason it may be. And I always encourage parents, you know, to write a letter. It's easier for the parent to write a letter. If you have an email address, I encourage parents to go to your district's website to get an email address for that department that you need to send information to. Put it in writing. And I always tell parents, if you feel comfortable calling, that's fine. When you call, make sure that you get a name of someone that you speak to. So if you need to reference it in the future, you have it. And listen, most importantly, if you write a letter, I do tell parents the best way to get it to your district's office if you can hand deliver it. And I know a lot of parents are working parents. It's very hard for them to do that. If you have a family member or a friend that can hand deliver a letter, and always ask for a time stamp on your letter. And what that does is that it stamps in a machine and it tells you the date and the time that your letter was submitted. So you have proof that you did submit a letter. You are requesting whatever it may be that you're requesting for your child. And not to make any excuse for any school district, I can share with parents that school districts are grossly understaffed. So a lot of the guidelines and the time frames in which letters or services or testing should be happening, sometimes it's not. And that's not an excuse, but I do just want to be transparent with parents. So sometimes parents will say, you know, I'm waiting for whatever time frame. I know it's past the time frame according to New York state law. A lot of the times it's because school districts are understaffed in areas where paperwork has to be processed or children have to be evaluated. But that's not an excuse. And I do still encourage parents to reach out and communicate with your district special education office if there's any additional evaluations, if you want meetings. That's the way that you would do it. Okay. So we're at the end of this conversation. This is the Q&A portion of the presentation. I encourage, if anyone has any comments or an experience that you want to share to get my feedback, this would be the time, you know, to do it. I encourage you to do that. I do want to thank everyone for logging on and participating in this presentation. This is just one of many topics that will be discussed. So I do encourage everyone to sign up and log in for the other lecture series that will be happening in the months to come from August through October of 2023. So I thank everyone for their time. It was my pleasure. I hope I shed light. I hope I provided information that you may not have had. And if you asked a question or gave a comment, I hope that what I shared back was something that you felt was useful.
Yes, Ms. Grace,
Yes,
great.
great. Oh, that was wonderful.
Thank you.
It was wonderful. Thank you so much to the parents who participated. And just a reminder, this presentation will be available in Spanish immediately after this workshop is
No, I think
completed,
we
Queen.
reschedule that. We're
We're gonna reschedule the Spanish version.
And you
Please
know
let
what?
me know. My parents will love, that's one thing
Listen,
my
I
parents
need to
would like to endure. Yes,
Call
yes.
me, please call me, because I want to make sure we have a nice size audience for Spanish speaking. So
All
we'll
right.
have this presentation translated, and we'll have someone to do that. And I think it's very important. So our parents that speak Spanish are empowered as well.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so
Mine
let's
would definitely
coordinate
will.
something.
Yes, mine will
coordinate something.
definitely in tune. I have support group this Friday coming up, and usually I have like a good 10 of them, you know, showing in, but they are
Mhm.
looking forward for more help in the community, anything that they could obtain and learn. I'm here to help and serve. So let's just let me know. We could reconnect.
Yes.
And we'll engage them as well.
Yes, definitely. For this particular presentation, we're going to reschedule. We don't have a date yet, but for the rest moving forward, it's going to be the English portion first, and about a half hour after the Spanish sessions follow. But just for this particular one, it didn't work out that way. But for this particular session, though, we want to offer in Spanish at a later date, maybe in a few days to a week. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
And I do encourage you, you can use my contact information if you're feeling that you're not getting the support or you need more information about how to support your Spanish-speaking families. Please reach out to me. There might be someone that I know in your particular, of a parent in their particular school that I can connect them with to make the experience, less difficult for them. So please use my
Thank you, Ms.
contact
Grace.
information, and I'll try to support you in any way that I can.
Truly appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you're doing. Continue doing. May God keep you going forward and strengthening people to have a better outcome in our world.
Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
You can use that. Thank you so much.
Yes. Great. Are there any other questions?
Nope. See how great Miss Grace was? She's so thorough. No one has questions.
Questions at all.
But yeah, it was great. And I am so, I did not thank you, Mr. Green. I do apologize. I want to thank
course.
everybody that had something to
Thank
do
you.
with the session today that's involved. So I'm so glad that Miss Grace is volunteering herself to do another session sometime soon. We'll talk about that later. If there's any questions or if there's something that we missed that you would like to add, Nana, could you put my email address in there? The info
Sure.
one. Hit me
And
with
Dr. Queen, I want you to please keep in mind the parent that had concerns about the IEP and what the child is eligible for. That's very important. I would like to do something as a follow-up where we actually go over what an IEP looks like, maybe page by page, to really help parents
Perfect.
understand what it is their child is supposed to receive,
Mhm.
giving them the
Mhm.
tools to help advocate to make sure that their child is receiving the service, because that does happen where the children are not receiving the services,
Right.
and maybe the parent may not know how to advocate for their
Right.
child.
Mhm.
So if that's something you can think about happening in the future, I would be on board.
Yes. Would you like for me to reach out to her and give you her contact information so at your convenience you can call her and discuss it?
Yes, that would be
Okay,
fine.
that's cool. All right, Mr.
Okay.
Garcia, I'm gonna give her your information. So yep, that's perfect. Will you ever put my email up? Not
Oh,
yet?
I'm sorry. I sent it to Nia
Oh, just her.
directly.
No, give it to
Let me
everyone.
make it to everyone.
Any
I'm sure Nia already has it.
a topic that we didn't, that's not on the roster coming up next will be special education. That's going to be Friday at 2 p.m. So now that I have a little bit of a hang of how to get the link to everyone, I'm going to be doing an e-blast that way. And the whole special education classroom component is going to be what's coming up on the 11th at 2 p.m. So we welcome parents to come log back on if you are available, and you should be starting to see posts of that going forward. But this is the first of 7. So we have 6 more coming up. And then the 8th one might be Miss Grace again. We don't even know. We'll see. But thank you again for everyone to come. Perfect. My email's there. So thank you for logging in. Thank you, Miss Grace. Thank you,
You're
Mrs.
welcome.
Degree. Thank you,
Thank you, Ms.
Nia,
Grace.
Kusudi International Incorporated. And thank you so much. We'll see you again on Friday, hopefully. All righty. Be safe, everyone. Enjoy your weekend.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone. Be safe. See you Friday.
Bye.